Hello, welcome. My name is Rocky, and this is a special bonus video for the Isometric Strength series. In this short but potent session, we're going to be doing some isometric drills to strengthen and awaken your core in all three planes of movement. So this is a nice video that you can integrate at the end of your week of training, or you can certainly pepper it in throughout 2, 3, maybe 4 times, or as a finisher, or even as a warm-up for your practice. So you'll need a blanket and 2 blocks. You can also use a bolster if you don't have a blanket. And then come onto your hands and your knees, and we'll just warm up with some movements for your spine. Start with cat and cow. Breathe in and extend your spine. Breathe out and push, round your spine. And then from a neutral position, we'll do some lateral movements. Move your tailbone over to the right. Look over your right shoulder. Stretch your left side. And then wag your tail over to the left. Broaden your right side. Back and forth. And then put the 2 movements together. So wag your tail to the right. Push into the floor. Round your spine. Wag over to the left. And then come into cow pose. So you'll make a big circle with your spine. And go in the other direction. Lie on your back. And actually, before you lie down, take your blanket or your bolster and place it on top of your ankles. Have your blocks overhead. You're going to lie on your back and place the blocks flat in each of your hands and stretch your arms all the way overhead. Your legs can be together here. We're going to use the blocks and the blanket as feedback so that you can press up into them. And of course, the blanket and block don't weigh too much, but imagine that they were heavier than they were. So squeeze your legs towards each other and then push your ankles up into the blanket so you feel a tone through the front of your hips and your low core. Then press your hands up into the blocks and draw your front ribs in. As you push into this kind of real and imaginary resistance, lengthen the blanket and the blocks away from each other. We'll hold each of these positions for about 10 or 15 seconds. Pull your ribs in, lift your hip points. Then as you lift the blocks off the floor, lift your head off the floor. Lift your shoulders off the floor. Press your ribs down into the floor and look towards your toes. Now keep palming the blocks, but reach your arms forward, palms up, and lift all of your ribs off the floor. Squeeze your core, so pull from your pubic bone to your sternum. And then finally bend your knees. Lift up into a bent knee navasana. Push up into the blanket, push up into the blocks, lift your chest and hold. Squeeze your belly. Pull your knees and your torso towards each other. And then we'll do that one more time. So straighten your legs, lay all the way back, take your arms overhead. Press your palms up into the blocks. Press your shins up into the blanket. Press the base of your ribs down into the floor and pull your hip points and your front ribs towards each other. Hold for about 10. Squeeze your waist. Then lift your head and shoulders off the floor. Keep your ears and your inner arms in line with each other. Push the base of your ribs into the mat. Circle your arms forward. Lift a little higher. Curl in your core. Curl in your spine. And then lift all the way up. Bend your knees. Hold modified navasana. Squeeze thighs and chest together. Push up into the blocks. Push up into the blanket. Pull your shoulders away from your neck. Very good. And then lower all the way down and rest. You can slide the blanket or the bolster off of your legs. Now we'll add that sort of curling in the spine with some transverse stabilization and a little bit of rotational movement. Straighten your legs in front of you. Squeeze your legs together. Hold on to the block, the short end of the block in your left hand. Bring your right knee up over your right hip. So your right shin is parallel to the floor, thigh perpendicular. Now press the short edge of the block into your right inner knee. As you squeeze your knee, block, and hand into each other, you'll tone across this sort of contralateral line from your left shoulder to your right hip. Reach your right arm up overhead, turn your right palm up. Now imagine you had a block in your right hand, imagine you had an ankle weight or a blanket on top of your left ankle, and press up with your extended limbs isometrically. Squeeze your leg and block into each other. Squeeze your ribs in, your waist in, stretch long. We're going to hold this for a total of 30 seconds, so about 15, 20 more seconds here. You could even lift your left heel just to hover, lift your right fingernails to hover off the floor. Keep your low back off the floor, but squeeze in your waist. And then release. Switch sides, straighten your right leg. Press the block into your inner left knee. Reach your left arm overhead, palm up. Turn your right toes up. Stretch your right heel and left fingertips away from each other. Squeeze the block and your left inner knee into each other. And then you might lift your left hand, right foot just a millimeter off the floor. Narrow your front ribs in. Narrow and lift your hip points. Squeeze through your core. And then release. Let's switch sides one more time. Bring your right leg in, connect the block, take your right arm overhead, and hold. So you get to choose how active these poses become. The more you press, the more you contract. Not only is this going to wake up the muscles more, but it will give you greater access to the muscles so you know how to recruit them when you need them. Release and switch. So press, right hand, left knee into the block. Lift and hover your limbs. Right foot, left hand. Stretch. Hug your waistline in. And release. Bend your knees for a moment, just take a brief bridge pose, lift your hips up, stretch the front of your body, and then lower down and sit yourself up. Okay, the next drill we're going to do is a really strong and functional drill to strengthen your obliques. It takes a little bit of practice to kind of get coordinated, but the effort is certainly worth it. We're going to use 2 blocks, the wall, and if you need to, you'll use your blanket, so bring it with you. Okay, so you're going to place the blocks about a leg's distance away from the wall, and then depending on the type of blocks you have, you might wish to take a blanket and place it on top of the blocks just so it's padded. It'll take a little bit of trial and error to figure out how far away from the wall you need to be, but ultimately you're going to place the outer edge of your left hip on the blocks, and then take your left foot to the wall in front of you and your right foot to the wall behind you. So I'm a little too close, I'm going to slide back a bit. So I want the left side of my pelvis, my ilium, on the block, and my feet connected to the wall. Okay, I'll come down onto my left elbow. I want to make my torso, side of my torso parallel to the floor. And then my right arm will reach towards the wall. Okay, so lift your pubic bone, press into the block, and then the work here is to take your left hand off the floor and bring it to your right ribs. So the isometric here is for the right side of your waist. Squeeze, shorten, and lift up. We'll hold this for about 20 more seconds. If you want to increase the load, you can reach your right arm up towards the ceiling or even overhead towards the middle of the room. Lift up a little higher, squeeze, and then bring your left elbow down. Okay, roll over, switch sides. Outer edge of your right hip goes to the blocks. So your bottom leg, right leg will be in front, top leg, left leg is behind. Bring your right elbow to the floor. Neutralize your pelvis. Okay, now if you're not quite as tall as I am, which most aren't, You can lift your right elbow first so you're already sort of in the shortened position, and then lift your hand off the floor. Bring your right hand to your left ribs and hold. See if you can avoid side bending in your neck, so lengthen through the crown of your head. Try and stay out of the back bend, just make it a side bend. Feel free to move your top arm either up or overhead. Lift a little higher. Then bring your right hand down. Let's do that one more time. Roll over to your left side. Another useful prop you can use for this, if you have it, is a foam roller. Go right underneath your left hip. Left arm down, right arm along your side. Bring your tailbone in, lift your hip points, lift your left elbow up, squeeze in your right side, and then lift your left hand off the floor. Bring it across your torso. So bring your right ear and right shoulder away from each other. About 5 more seconds. Lift a little higher and release. All right, last time, switch sides. Roll over to the right. Get yourself set up. Lift your right hand and hold. Put your attention in the left side of your torso. Squeeze from your left hip to your left ribs. You can also move your left arm as you stabilize through your trunk. Lift a little higher. And bring your right hand down. Lift yourself up off the props. Come back to your mat. We'll finish with just a little bit of joint mobilization here. Stand with your feet about hips width apart and place your hands on top of your head. So a functional core is going to contribute to the stability of your trunk, really in all positions, but certainly in standing. So push your feet down into the floor, press your head and your hands into each other. Feel how this naturally recruits the muscles, the fibers of your deep core. Then keep the connection of your hands to your head, and we'll just move a little bit in our spine. So take a lateral bend to the right, press your head and hands together. And you can round your spine, kind of roll forward and over to the left. You can even roll back and do a few circles in each direction. And switch directions. So your range of motion will be dependent on really how much you can stay stable as you move further from Tadasana. Come back to the center, press feet down, head and hands, and lower your arms. All right, well done. Thank you for joining me, and look forward to seeing you next time. Enjoy your strong core. Namaste.